Hello everyone, it's Refresh, and I'm here to bring you a battle between two Dominaria sealed decks versus the Defeated God Challenge deck from Journey into Nyx. These two decks are in gold, we have an Abzen deck, and in black we have a Rakdos deck. We will be using the Harvester. It will let us draw a card and discard a card each turn. The Explorer, which will let us play one additional land on each of our turns. And the Vanquisher, which will begin the game with one additional card, and then we will be able to hold an additional card each turn at the cleanup phase. We'll go ahead and start with 8 cards each. Abzen has Shanna Sisay's Legacy, On Sarah's Wings, Plains, Call the Cavalry, Force, Memorial to Unity, Llanowar Elves, and Sergeant at Arms. I think that's a pretty good start. Rakdos has Voltaic Servant, Mountain, Swamp, and E2 Journey Mage. This is not a terribly good hand, but I think being able to charge out whatever we draw isn't too bad, so we'll go ahead and keep that as well. On turn number 1, we will play a Forest and Memorial to Unity. We will tap the Forest to play a Llanowar Elves, and we will play a Mountain and a Swamp, and we'll tap them to play the Voltaic Servant. The Voltaic Servant will untap itself at the end step, and we will pass the turn to Xenagos. Xenagos will play its first card, which is Xenagos' Score, and Xenagos gains Trample until end of turn, attacks this turn if able. And Xenagos will also play Impulsive Charge at the beginning of combat this turn. All revelers gain haste and attack this combat if able. So we are going to be attacked by everybody, and we will block just one reveler with the Voltaic Servant, taking 8 damage and going to 12. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Abzen will draw a Skittering Surveyor, and Rakdos will draw a Swamp. We'll discard a Mountain, and we will also discard the Sergeant at Arms, and then we'll untap. We'll draw. Abzen draws a Swamp, and Rakdos draws another Swamp. We'll play the Swamp and the Mountain, and the Plains and the Swamp. We'll cast a Skittering Surveyor, and that will fetch us a Plains. We'll shuffle, and then we will cast Shanna Sisay's Legacy. She comes in as a 3/3. We will cast the Get2 Journey Mage as well, and then we will pass the turn to Xenagos. Xenagos will untap. Xenagos will play its top 2 cards, the first one being an enchantment. Whenever a reveler attacks, Dance of Flame deals 1 damage to each player. And the next card is Ecstatic Piper. When Ecstatic Piper enters the battlefield, Xenagos Descendant attacks this turn if able. When Ecstatic Piper leaves the battlefield, each player gains 2 life. Xenagos will attack this turn because he is able. We will go ahead and put the Skittering Surveyor in the way of Xenagos, and it will perish. At the end of the turn, we will use the Harvester to draw and discard. Abzen draws a Plains. Rakdos draws a Mountain. We'll go ahead and discard a Mountain. We will go ahead and discard a Plain. And then we will untap. Abzen draws a Forest. Rakdos draws a Gargoyle, Glutton of Urborg. We'll go ahead and play the Mountain and the Swamp, and the Plains and the Forest. Abzen will play Call the Cavalry, getting us 2 Knights, making Shanna a 4/4. Rakdos will play Yargle. We will attack a Rollicking Throng with a Get2 Journey Mage. We will attack a Ecstatic Piper with Shanna Sisay's Legacy, and then these 2 will die. We will gain 4 life to go back up to 16, and then we will pass the turn to Xenagos. Xenagos will untap. Xenagos will play its top card, which is Ecstatic Piper. Xenagos will attack this turn because he is able, and we will also play Xenagos' Strike, which will do 8 damage to us, taking us down to 8. Xenagos attacks. We will throw the Llanowar Elves into Xenagos' way to die, and then we will use the Harvester at the end of the turn. Abzen draws an Eviscerate, and Rakdos draws a Fiery Intervention. We will discard the Eviscerate, and we will discard the Mountain. We'll untap. We'll draw. Abzen draws a Slimefoot the Stowaway, and Rakdos draws a Joyr's Familiar. We'll go on the attack. The 2 Knights will attack one of the Rollicking Throngs. The Get2 Journey Mage will attack the other Rollicking Throng, and Shanna will attack the Ecstatic Piper, killing all 3 of them. We'll gain 4 life to go up to 12. We'll place Slimefoot the Stowaway here. And then we will play Fiery Intervention on Xenagos, dealing 5 damage to him, killing him, and because there are no Revelers, he's removed from the battlefield, and we win. So that was game 1. The sealed decks are successful. We'll be right back for game 2. Time for our second game. Against the Defeated God Challenge deck from Journey to Nyx, we will be playing on difficult mode now with 4 Rollicking Throngs. We'll go ahead and draw 8 cards each and see how it goes. Abzan has a Maze Unicorn, Forest, Grundle the King, Call the Cavalry, Sapling, Migration, Slimefoot the Stowaway, Sapling Migration, and Memorial to Unity. This is kind of a slow hand. We don't really have the lands that we need to get going, so I think we're actually going to ship this despite the fact that there's a lot of action in the hand. Because this is a multiplayer game, we're going back to 8 cards. These 8 cards are Call the Cavalry, Slimefoot the Stowaway, Grundle the King, Sapling Migration, Sarah Angel, Swamp, Invoke the Divine, and Llanowar Elves. This is actually even worse than the hand before because we have 1 land that's off color, so we'll go ahead and shift this and go to 7. At 7 we have On Sarah's Wings, Maze Unicorn, Forest, Invoke the Divine, Plains, Vicious Offering, and Woodland Cemetery. This is a little better, and so we'll go ahead and keep that. Rakdos has Swamp, Thallid Omnivore Swamp, Eviscerate, Urza's Tomb, Soul Salvage, Swamp, and Mountain. I think this is okay for a start, so we'll go ahead and keep that. Turn 1, we will play a Plains and a Forest. We'll tap both and we'll play the Mesa Unicorn. And we will also play a Mountain and a Swamp. We'll tap both and play Urza's Tome. And then we will pass the turn to Xenagos. Xenagos will play its topmost card, which is Ecstatic Piper. When it enters the battlefield, Xenagos will attack if he's able. And then we'll play Rollicking Throng. When it enters the battlefield, we'll reveal the top card from Xenagos' library, and Xenagos will cast that card. So we'll go ahead and cast another card, and that is the Serpent Dancers. It's a 2/4 with Death Touch. When it leaves the battlefield, each player will draw a card. Whew, that is a lot. Xenagos is going to go attacking. We will take 6 and go to 14, and then it will be our turn. At the end of Xenagos' turn, we'll use the Harvester. Abzan draws a Llanowar Elves. Rakdos draws a Swamp. We will discard a Swamp, and we will discard the On Sarah's Wings. We'll untap. We'll draw. Abzan draws a Memorial to Unity. Rakdos draws a Windgrace Acolyte. We'll go ahead and play both Swamps and the Woodland Cemetery and the Memorial to Unity. We will tap the Forest to play the Llanowar Elves, and we will tap all 4 of these to play the Thallid Omnivore. We will attack the Serpent Dancers with the Mesa Unicorn, and we will cast a Vicious Offering on those Serpent Dancers to make them -2/-2. That makes them a 0/2, and they will die to the Mesa Unicorn. We will gain 2 life from that exchange because of Mesa Unicorn's lifelink, and when this dies, we'll each draw a card. That will get us an Aven Sentry for Abzan and a Rampaging Cyclops for Rakdos. And now we will pass a turn to Xenagos. Xenagos will untap. Xenagos will draw and play the topmost card, which is an Ecstatic Piper. Xenagos will attack this turn if he is able, but also play another Ecstatic Piper, and Xenagos will attack this turn if he's able. He's going to attack. We're going to go ahead and absorb the whole damage to go down to 10. And then we will use the Harvester. We will draw a card. Abzan draws a Benelish Marshal, and Rakdos draws a Joyrus Familiar. We'll discard the Windgrace Acolyte, and we will discard the Benelish Marshal. We'll untap. We'll draw. We get Grundle the King for Abzan, and Rakdos will get a Swamp. We'll play the Swamp. We will attack a Ecstatic Piper with a Thallid Omnivore to kill it. Ecstatic Piper down. We'll gain 4 life to go up to 14. We will cast 1 Aven Sentry, and we will cast a Rampaging Cyclops. And then we will pass the turn to Xenagos. Xenagos will untap and will cast its topmost card, which is Ferrisbrand Revelers. When it leaves the battlefield, each player will draw a card. It's a 4/4, and it will also cast Xenagos' Strike. Will take 4 damage per player to go down to 6. And then it'll be the end of the turn. We'll use Harvester. Abzan will draw Shana Sisei's Legacy, and Rakdos will draw Josu Ves. We'll discard Grundle the King, and we will discard Joyrus Familiar. We'll untap. We'll draw. Abzan draws a Llanowar Elves, and Rakdos draws a Voltaic Servant. Before we do anything else, let's cast Eviscerate on the Ferris Band Revelers. That will kill them. We will each draw a card. Abzan draws Grun the Lonely King, and Rakdos draws Jaya's Immolating Blaze. And now we'll go on the attack. We will attack a Rollicking Throng with an Aven Sentry, a Ecstatic Piper with the Thallid Omnivore, and another Ecstatic Piper with the Thallid Omnivore, killing all 3, getting us 8 life to go back up to 14. And then on the second main phase, we will cast Shanna, Sisay's Legacy. We'll cast 1 Llanowar Elves, and we will pass the turn to Xenagos. Xenagos will cast the top 2 cards, the first one being Impulsive Return. Return 2 cards named Ecstatic Piper from Xenagos' graveyard to the battlefield at the beginning of combat. This turn, Impulsive Return deals damage to each player equal to the number of Revelers on the battlefield. We are returning 2 Ecstatic Pipers to the battlefield. We're going to be taking 12 damage, plus Xenagos' attack. And the second spell is Dance of Flame. Whenever a Reveler attacks, Dance of Flame deals 1 damage to each player. Alright, Impulsive Return triggers will take 12 damage and go to 2, and Xenagos will go on the attack. We'll go ahead and throw the Mesa Unicorn in front of Xenagos, so it will die, we'll gain 2 life to go to 4, and then at the end of the turn we'll use the Harvester. Abzan will draw a Sapphire Migration, and Rakdos will draw a Swamp. We will discard the Sapphire Migration, and we will discard Jaya's Immolating Inferno, and then we'll untap. We'll draw. Abzan draws a Sapling Migration. Rakdos draws a Mountain. We'll go ahead and play the Swamp and the Mountain. And then we will attack a Rollicking Throng and an Ecstatic Piper with those 2. We'll attack an Ecstatic Piper and a Rollicking Throng with these 2, killing all 4 of these, getting us 8 life to go back up to 12. And then on the second main phase, we'll go ahead and cast Josuves and the Voltaic Servant. And on this side, we're not going to cast anything. We will pass the turn to Xenagos. Xenagos will untap. Xenagos will play the top 2 cards. The first one being Xenagos Scorn. Xenagos gains Trample and until end of turn and attacks if able. And we'll also play Xenagos Strike. We'll take 4 damage per player, and so we'll take 8 damage to go to 4. Xenagos is attacking with Trample, which means that we will need to throw Josuves in front of Xenagos, and we'll also put Voltaic Servant in front of Dennis Xenagos. Xenagos will deal 6 damage to Voltaic Servant, killing it. Josuves will absorb most of the rest of the damage, and then we will not take any more damage. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Abzan will draw a Forest, and Rakdos will draw a Swamp. We'll discard the Swamp, we'll discard the Forest, and we'll also use the Invoke the Divine at the end of the turn to destroy the Dance of Flame. We'll get 4 life to go up to 8, and then we will untap. We'll draw. Abzan draws a Plains, and Rakdos draws a Mountain. We'll play the Mountain, we'll play the Plains. We will attack a Rollicking Throng each with the Aven Sentry and the Thallid Omnivore, finishing off the Rollicking Throngs. We will cast Grun the Lonely King. Over here, we'll go ahead and cast Soul Salvage here, getting back the Windgrace Acolyte and Joyra's Familiar. And then we'll pass the turn to Xenagos. Xenagos will untap. Xenagos will play the top 2 cards, the first one being Impulsive Charge. At the beginning of combat this turn, all Revelers gain haste until end of turn and attack this combat if able, and it will also cast another Impulsive Charge. So nothing happens with Xenagos this turn. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Abzan will draw an Eviscerate, and Rakdos will draw a Bardic Wanderer. We'll discard the Windgrace Acolyte, and we will discard the Sapperling Migration. We will untap. Abzan will draw a Plains, and Rakdos will draw the Eldritch Reborn. We'll go ahead and play the Plains, and then we will play the Eldritch Reborn. When Eldritch Reborn enters the battlefield, they get a counter, and the opponent will sacrifice. It's a creature that is Xenagos. That is the end of the game for Xenagos. These Dominaria sealed decks have defeated Xenagos and have triumphed over the challenge deck in both normal and difficult modes. Let me know what you thought about the games in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit like for me. If you would like to see more such videos, hit subscribe. Thanks for watching. This was Refresh, and I will see you next time.